Please be seated. Thank you very much. Thank you. I will also make it very, very brief. The Honorable Minister for Environment, Mrs. Sharon Ikazo, here ably represented by the Director General and Chief Executive for the National Biosafety Management Agency, Dr. Rufus Ebegba. The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Zubairu Gambo, here ably represented by the Chief of Naval Transformation, Rear Admiral I.B. Yusuf. I think he gave a very, very, very good report, speech of your boss. Cabinet members of Lagos State here, the Secretary to Government, but of course to also acknowledge the Honorable Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, Body of Permanent Secretary, the African Regional Coordinator for United Nations Resolution 1540, Ms. Enias Mohammed, the Executive Director and Chief Executive for National Primary Health Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaibu, other keynote speakers, especially Professor Happy, Christian Happy, who I enjoyed his keynote address very well. So acknowledge the Chief Executive for Emerging Pathogens Treatment Consortium, GET, Dr. Ayodotun Babajide. I also acknowledge a senior sister to my Honorable Commissioner, the Head of Family Medicine at UCH, Professor Ladipo. I'm sure she wasn't expecting that. Other very many important guest speakers that are here, both local and international, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. You can see it's been a very, very high-powered, high-energy conference this morning. But we will remember that 2020 remains a watershed in the annals of human race. It gave governance, economies, and science all over the world different meaning. It was a year that brought a great number of sovereign nations to their knees without foreign fiscal invasion. It was a war without the Navy, it was a war without the Army, it was a war without the Air Force, but all nations, in respect of your sovereignty, were all on our knees. The COVID-19 pandemic remained unforgettable to all of us, and for most of the world, it gave disruptive impact. Indeed, as I mentioned, the rings true for so much of the world. It didn't even allow the generals to come out. It didn't allow them to roll out their battleships. All of us were locked in. Religious leaders couldn't do much. Churches and mosques couldn't have their prayers. We all had to divide and invent new ways of greeting ourselves, new ways of looking for ourselves, new ways of collaborating. It was indeed a very, very tough year. But we thank God that all of us can be here today. But you see, for us in Lagos, the incident of 2014, which Dr. Shuaibu, all of you have spoken about during Ebola, gave us that seemingly pathway for us to understand the issues around biosecurity, and gave us a very strong awakening at that time. With the help of our partners, from 2014, we've been able to escalate and build a level 2 and level 3 biosecurity lab, which was an hybrid biosafety laboratory facility, which has also a biobank and drive the Lagos Biosecurity Roadmap. This laboratory is presently known as the Lagos State Biobank, and it functions as a nerve center for the Lagos State COVID-19 response. The roadmap process has gone through a painstaking years of human personnel capacity building, civic engagement, legislative review, and drafting of laws, are providing necessary specialized structure and support to combat any biosafety or security threats has been witnessed in the last year and a half. So when you look at the picture that Professor Abami put up there, the day in which we set up the incident command chain, I certainly didn't know what the future looked like, but I was convinced that indeed, if you have the very many capable and competent men that God has blessed us with in Lagos, I was certain that we will also, pull through this. I certainly was wearing a dark tie, so I'm wearing a bright tie today. Maybe it means that indeed there's there are better lights down the tunnel. But Lagos, I'm sure you all know, remains a geographical entity with a significant vulnerability of incidents of biosecurity threats. We could say because we're the only ones that have the biggest sea border, we're the only ones that have the biggest land border, we're the only ones that have the biggest air border. So all of the things that could go wrong certainly could go wrong in Lagos. And we're just a very small, tiniest part of the country. It is in light of that threat that Lagos has consistently powered, the Lagos Biosecurity Project. We recognize the need to optimize and sustain the use of our biological resources today, and we have responsibility to ensure that future generations can experience and benefit from the secure biospace that we all planned for. When the incident command chain was set up, not that we were trained by any military personnel, but we could understand that what should be, the response when you're in a war zone. When you have, an incident command and control, chain of response. So part of the things that happened then was that we shut down our entire cabinet, we reduced the entire cabinet to just a number of 8, meaning that we can meet quickly, faster, and that the entire cabinet has given the 8 of us the powers and the ability to respond very quickly, to raise resources, to be able to not come back to the big house for us to do the things that we wanted to do. And as the incident commander, I was also given a responsibility to ensure that we don't have to wait for all of the bureaucratic tendencies of the public service for us to be able to attack and respond to the issue. Not that we knew what was going to happen the next day and the next day, but we're convinced amongst ourselves that for as long as we can remove all the red tapes, we can remove all the bureaucracies, that indeed we will not be accused for not doing anything, because we'll be very bold at ensuring that we do something. And that was exactly how we're set up, to face the war that we have never seen before. So we said to ourselves that resources will not be an issue, because we will ensure that if it is funding, we'll provide more than enough to ensure that we could acquire or buy whatever needs to be bought. We also ensure that training and very wrapped up human capital development will also not affect us. And we said to ourselves that everything that needs to be done in terms of training, in terms of capacity development, we need to ensure that we wrap up. And finally, we also said that we would be decisive. We would try and very quickly learn and understand, what is happening around us, what is happening globally, and we'll be able, to very quickly come together almost every evening to review things and to probably be able to set up, new ways of responding the very next day. And so those were some of the things that helped us, in Lagos during that time. People have asked me, you were not worried about people wasting money or something. No, you don't get worried about resources if you know that you are about to save lives. You don't wake up and start imagining, that people are going to mess up. No, because nobody has walked that path before. So, but we're not afraid of failing, but we're more concerned about ensuring that all of our guys have the responsibility and have the authority, to do all the things that they are convinced that is the right way for them to do it. And so we want to commend Professor Abayomi and his entire team. Thank you very much. So we were aware that the need for a geometric intelligence towards the achievement of a quick detection of mutant strains of dangerous pathogens, precision medicine and biopharmacy synergy, biology and genetic engineering. As a state, we had moved in the direction through the acquisition, like they said, and we've just acquired the state-of-the-art sequencing equipment. So when they brought me the invoice for that machine again, I asked Professor Abayomi, you mean we're going to spend close to $1 billion to buy all of these machines again? He said, yes, because we're not out of it yet, and we do not know how it will mutate and how it's also going to, part out again. So the best thing for us is to continue to be ahead of the pack and continue to be in a position that we can respond adequately no matter how it turns out. And I'm indeed excited that, those advices, we're able to take them on board and we're able to respond very, very, very quickly. As we all said, health is wealth. But we knew from our government that when we set up our team's agenda and we put health and environment and we put them together, we said to ourselves that we just did not want to make a lip service of it. Even in our economic agenda, human capital development was very critical. And so that's why, if you look at the budget of Lagos State, since when we came in almost 860 days ago, right, 870 days, we've been saying to ourselves that we will set out a budgetary process that will ensure that we will not reduce our spending on human capital development. So our health and education spend year on year has grown. We moved the budget of Ministry of Health from less than 10%. When we came, it was about 8%. Now they are well over 11, going to 12%. And next year's budget is even higher. And so we said to ourselves that is the only way where you can build that future that you talk about today. It's only when you put resource, you put them into the right places and you put the right people and you give them the right sense of direction that indeed they can help us. Similarly, and also more importantly, also in education, because we believe that those are very two components that can help us situate the future that we're all, not so sure of, but we believe that it certainly will be better than where we find, ourselves today. And so for us in Lagos, it's not just about what had happened with COVID, but it also gave us the opportunity to wrap up, our infrastructure on all fronts, be it training, be it, bringing in new doctors and new health officials. We've wrapped up even, our human resource in the health space by almost close to 2,000 new staff, in Ministry of Health and in the Health Service Commission. But more importantly, we've also are positioning ourselves to ask that even after COVID, how do we respond and how do we position the state, and our economy going forward? There's also the conversation around mental health. And so that's why we're building the biggest mental, health infrastructure also in the country. We're putting up infrastructure where, mental health rehabilitation and all of it, because we all talk about it, but nobody's taking action, in that space. So the Lagos State government is also building the biggest, mental health facility in the country, because we also don't want to be caught napping. Professor Abami also showed a picture. We're proud of what Dr. Happy is doing at EDE, but we want to build for you the biggest, African infectious disease center. Dr. Shuaibu to have said it. We want to be able to be in a position where we have the best, of biosecurity lab, and we have the best, of the technology, in which even in the event of anything close to this happen again, that Lagos or indeed Nigeria will not also be found, wanting. And we're not just doing that. We're building the biggest children's hospital also in the whole of West Africa. We're building, brand new hospitals that we believe that indeed we need to reverse, medical tourism, and where we need to just be able to work with the private sector and ensure that, they have, an enabling environment for them to also raise resources, and be able to build first-class hospitals in Lagos. We're so excited that in the last, 6 months, we've opened 2 very big, massive private hospitals that are comparable to any part in the world. And we continue to say that, we'll create an ambience and an environment where even the private sector can do well and they can strive, to believe that government will continue, to help us. So as I end, and I think Dr. Shuaibu had mentioned it, is to, have in another room all of our plans for vaccination, and how we cannot afford to not be prepared in the event of a 4th wave, and Dr. Shuaibu and I will also, be taking that bold step, and be announcing some of our very, very bold achievements at ensuring that we can vaccinate, and have an herd immunity in Lagos very, 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 very quickly. And so it's really a joy to welcome all of you, dignitaries from far and wide, to this 7th African Conference on Biosafety and One Health. We look forward to the exchange of ideas and presentation that will further guide the state in a drive to make our environment more habitable and a safer living and for economic activities and businesses. It is important that we focus that forums such as this are taking place today for us to continue to inform biosecurity partners and stakeholders and to further foster collaboration efforts so that vital and important areas are not left unattended to. On the program here today, we have, I can see how impressive your life is, and I want to use this opportunity to thank Professor Happy again. We are not lost on your words for us to detect, for us to connect, and for us to empower all of the labs and all of the things that were coming out from the great works that you are doing. And like I've said to you, we also believe that we can build, first-class infrastructure that can make the work of the likes of yourselves even be a lot better. But I cannot end this little address without acknowledging all of the great works that our Ministry of Health and our various partners are doing. And I think it's important that I acknowledge Global Emerging Pathogen Treatment Consortium, known as GET, all of my permanent secretaries, Mustafa, Ogboye, Enyayeun, and of course, the chairman of the commission, Dr. Abayomi. I have new friends in medical field now, Dr. Omilabu, Dr. Mutiu, Dr. Saka, Dr. Abdusalam. All of them are my very good friends, but we're all very good friends now because they've helped me, in that whole journey. And I just want to thank everyone, and I want to assure you that Lagos State will leave nothing to chance. We're ready for it, we're motivated, and we'll continue to keep our state safe, we'll continue to keep our country, safe for each and every one of us. And I want to wish all you the very, very best in the next 1 or 2 days as this conversation. Thank you very much, and I formally now declare open this conference. And I want to also thank my friend, Dr. Byron. It's an English name, but he's been my friend for over 25 years. It's nice to see you. And the lovely co-MC here today. You guys have been doing it. Moji, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellency, please, before you go, I would like, I've mentioned it to the governor's staff, we will remove these two panels, so everybody in the front row will please come on stage. We'll have a group photograph, but we will be joined by PS Dr. Boye. We'll be joined by the head of the Air Force that is here. We'll be joined by the representative of the Inspector General of Police. We'll also